Hello and welcome to the #AskDK show. Today we've got Carl Smythe from Pinnacle Marketing. We just want to say welcome to you, Carl.
Thanks, Dylan. Great to be here.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dylan Colstad, and today we're talking to Carl Smythe from Pinnacle Marketing here at his fabulous offices at Eden on the Bay in Cape Town. So Carl, we've got a lot of questions for you, and I've got so many things I've been wanting to ask you since I met you, because you're one of the most inspiring people I've ever met, and it just comes naturally for you. So our show is all about entrepreneurs and helping entrepreneurs know how to start a business and know how to navigate some of life's troubled waters, which it seems that life is all about for everybody. Nobody gets off easy. So a couple of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and some of the questions come from our followers. But before we do that, tell us briefly, what is Pinnacle Marketing? What do you guys do here?
Well, Pinnacle Marketing is a short-term insurance brokerage. We specialize in mobile device insurance predominantly.
Okay, cool. And have you always done that, or did you pivot at some point?
We started in 2000. Prior to that, I was a traditional insurance broker, insuring everything. I used to say I insure everything other than horses and aeroplanes. And then we started to specialize, and since then we've done exceptionally well in our niche, which is mobile devices.
Okay, awesome. And okay, so I've got a couple of questions for you. So if you can just tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. How did you start? Like, you know, just very briefly, like what led you to become an entrepreneur? Have you always been an entrepreneur, or?
No, I think whilst in different companies, I've always been an ideas person, and I became into the position I was by default, not through a planned execution. It was actually based on a principled decision that I left the company I was working for, in that I didn't agree in the direction they were going in, and hence finding myself in this position of having to make it work for myself, and growing the business from there.
So you came from the insurance industry?
I did.
So you knew a little bit about it?
Yes.
So when you started Pinnacle Marketing, did you decide to do something different? Like why would people have come to Pinnacle and not, you know, the company you just left or your competitors?
Well, at the time in 2000, I was pioneering a new type of insurance, which was mobile device insurance. It required a channel, which I had started to establish. So I had already spent months and months working on an idea that I had, though it hadn't been well received by the people I worked with, in that it made so little money. But I believed in it. So when I did leave, it was the only thing I took with me. Okay. Going back to 2000, I had 300 clients, and I earned 1,973 rands a month.
Wow. So you just knew that it was going to work and it was going to pick up?
Yeah. Well, in those days, early days, we were doing 5 policies a day. Wow. So 25 a week, 100 a month. And there was times when I really questioned whether I had made the right move.
Were you married?
I was.
Wife, like, also questioning, when are you going to start paying for yourself? Or was she supportive?
Supportive, very supportive. I think the biggest challenge was she was pregnant with our first child.
Oh, wow.
So
So you started a new business while you had a baby on the way?
Yes.
Sure, brave, very brave.
Remember, it wasn't planned.
Yeah.
It wouldn't probably been the way that I would have recommended anybody today to do it.
But also, it was meant to be, if you look back.
Definitely.
Because otherwise you'd be working for somebody else, making them rich.
Yeah.
But do you think that you working for yourself, you were more energized and more, you had to make it work?
Yeah.
So do you think that plays a factor? Because I know a lot of wannabe entrepreneurs, you know, they try and work and then run something on the side because they're trying to see if it works, it doesn't work. And I'm in two minds about that. On the one hand, I don't want you to quit your job and, you know, risk it all, but I'm also thinking that maybe until you put all your eggs in one basket, maybe there's just a little bit of energy that kicks in when you're no longer, when you're that like committed.
Sure. I think what you can do if you're currently in a position and you're thinking about doing it, you could probably put yourself into a place of called self-induced paranoia, which is where you start to imagine yourself in that position. Okay. A couple of things I would suggest is definitely have as much backup resources as possible. Stress is not necessarily a great thing, financial stress. I remember buying my first office furniture and paying for it, being very proud that I've paid for it, and receiving a phone call from the office supply company to tell me that the gentleman had made a mistake. And I asked him what the mistake was, and he said he hadn't added VAT, and I was due to pay the VAT. And I broke down crying because I didn't have the money for the VAT. And I asked if I could pay the VAT off, and that was just on paying off a desk. Oh, wow. So having some money funding is a wise thing. You'll sleep better.
No, I completely agree. Also, I think so. I mean, some offices you needed to have, and that. What other ways did you cut costs when starting out, so that you didn't go lavish on the overheads and?
No. So we started off in a garage. First, originally in 2000, I started at a kitchen table. Then we moved into a garage, and when we grew out of the garage, at that time I was in the position to be able to rent offices.
Okay, so you did it all scalably and slowly and incrementally.
Yes.
Okay, and then so where did you get funding from to start the business?
Okay, so I had a very, very good job prior to leaving, and I'd put a lot of money into our bond. So I started to draw out on a monthly basis out of the bond to cover the costs.
Yeah, that's what I did as well, the bond. I figured I'd worked long enough and hard enough that this was kind of a bit of payback for myself, for my dream.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's good to be able to have that kind of resource available. What would somebody do if they didn't have a bond or?
Well, I like to encourage people never to allow money to be the hindrance of allowing a dream to come true. I said, there's no shortage of money, and there's an enormous amount of money and amount of investors, but they're all looking for two common traits. They're looking for great people, and they're looking for great ideas. And I'd go as far as to say they're looking for great people who can execute great ideas. So when money's a problem, take your focus off the money and keep on investing in yourself and developing those ideas. So I always say, like, be a great jockey.
So what are some ways that you could invest in yourself?
The least expensive, I would start to say, would be listening to talks over the internet. Then reading is a phenomenal way of investing in oneself. More expensive than connecting to the internet, of course. And then the next is doing programs. I have in the past years heavily invested in myself, having not had any tertiary education, and I've spent a lot of money investing in myself in programs through companies like LMI and SMI and different mentors. And it's a philosophy, and a part of our company culture is to do that for our team as well, because we believe in it. And when having one-on-one meetings with the team, it's amazing how many of them talk about the company's approach towards investing in their development and growth being one of the most significant things that they talk about why they're happy here.
Wow, that's amazing. I must say that the first thing that struck me when I met you was the culture that you've created here.
Yeah.
Why have you created such an amazing culture and not, I mean, I speak to so many people who are miserable. Yeah. Miserable where they work. I mean, one story I heard of was at a bank here in South Africa. Somebody had cancer, and when they came back from their chemo treatment, the boss didn't ask them how they are, asked them when are they going to catch up all their work. And the other lady had a stroke at the very same institution. Another lady had a stroke, and instead of saying, "How are you?" she got marked a 0 or a 1 on her performance appraisal because she hadn't been there to do the work. So I'm just like, for the amount of energy that it takes to create a toxic, horrible, appalling culture. Why have you? What made you decide to invest? Because you've invested a lot of time and energy in creating this amazing culture. Why did you do that?
Yeah. Well, culture is everything. Culture, I cannot stress, is everything. It underpins the entire company and the way that we interact with our clients, our suppliers, everything. But one of the times what struck me most significantly was I was in a meeting, and I was getting absolutely drilled by these serious entrepreneurs. And towards the end of the meeting, this was the statement they said. They said, "Carl, within 2 years, we could reverse engineer your business. We would be able to figure out everything that you do. The only thing that we couldn't copy is your culture."
Oh, wow.
And I realized right there and then that our culture was going to be such a differentiator that others would not be able to copy.
So it's actually something that sets you apart, because, sorry to interrupt you, but I know, on the show we've had a lot of entrepreneurs asking us, how do I set myself apart because I'm in a price war, my business is just, it's commoditized, how do I differentiate myself? And not once has the value of culture been raised, that actually culture can be something that causes a customer to choose you above your competitors because your culture is so powerful and so strong.
Sure. I think some of the values to our clients is the retention of our team. I'm going to go through 2014 to 2016, probably two of the most toughest times of trading for us. We had a company of 43 people and we went down to 41. We lost 2 people in 2 years.
Wow.
And
do you want to share with people that actually was at a time of significant financial constraints?
Sure, I could. We'd lost our major client, and I had, interestingly enough, I'd had a lunch with a very a genius, in fact, of an advisor. This gentleman charges at 7,000 rands an hour just from a consultation perspective, and I had the privilege of having lunch with him. And I'll never forget that he was asking me about how my business was, and I told him we're in a real difficult time. This is early 2015, so we're 6 months into this perfect storm. And he said, "Okay, let me give you some advice. This is the best advice I can give you. Leave lunch, get in your car, and retrench 50% of your staff." And here was his justification, that if you were to reduce your complement of staff by 50%, it will double your longevity and the possibility of finding another replacement client. I left that lunch, and I think I almost cried on that. It'd be the last thing in the whole world I would want to do. That if I was going to sink, I was going to go down with them. Wow. And I made a principled decision there that we would put people before profit. And fortunately, in the good times, we created some reserves that were able to carry us through the tough times. And hence...
so for 2 years, you didn't have you were losing...
We're losing clients every single month.
And you didn't retrench one person, you organically lost 2.
Yeah.
But then in 2 years later, did the big brand come back? Did the client come back?
Well, that's the happy ending to the story, is that the client did come back. And I remember the meeting, and I said, you didn't come back because of me. You came back because of the company. And what is the company? The company is the people. Yeah. And the comfort I can give you is that if you were to reappoint us, that the same 43 people, there's 41 of them still there. It's an incredible, consistent base, and that's a base that's been through a storm. And if you were wanting to, if there was ever a team that you wanted a team that had been through tough times, because that shows you what they're made of.
So amazingly, you weathered the storm with the team. What was the impact? Did people know that they were that close to like getting retrenched, and did they appreciate that? And
I think some of them know the ins and outs of it. I think I gave a speech in 2015, and I said I feel like Christopher Columbus in that everybody's gone east, and we've decided to go west. And I'm telling you as a company that we've passed the line of no return. And the line of no return is that when you've committed to your project to such an extent that there is no return. There is no return because there is no more resources. There's not enough water and there's not enough food. There's only one way, and that's to find land. And I have a deep sense of belief that we were going to find that. And we just had to hang in there long enough.
wow! So you literally had to walk on water, and you did find land. That's amazing. I think that's the most inspiring story ever. That your staff comes first, your team comes first, your culture comes first, and if you're putting that first, I think because as an entrepreneur sometimes you're so driven and you push yourself so much that you see your staff as resources and as tools and a means to an end, and you don't invest in them, and then once they leave, they take all of that equity and that learning and the training with them, as opposed to choosing to stay because you've created a culture and a brand that's just like phenomenal. So yeah, thanks to a lot of your input, we've tried to create a culture like that where there's no shouting, nobody shouts at anybody. If something goes wrong, we learn and we fix it. There's no blaming. It's always just like, okay, what went wrong? What are we going to fix? And okay, there's something broken. Is it me? Is it my thinking? So yeah, I think that's amazing. I really think that's a really powerful takeaway.
I'd just like to share part of the culture. One of the first things that happens on day one when you join Pinnacle is induction. Induction, you spend time with a number of different departments, getting explained to about what they do. And towards the end of the day, you have the opportunity of having coffee, funny enough, in these two seats with Candace, who's the operations director. She's been with me for 17 years, coming February. So really right there from the beginning. And one of the things I love to share is something I was taught when I was 21 years old. And that is that life is made of 3 8s. 8 you work, 8 you play, and 8 you sleep. And I take ownership for this 8. These 8 are my 8. And I'm going to make it as happy a place for you to be. Because this 8 affects the other 16. It affects your fun time. It affects your sleep. So I try, and we try as a company, to make this as great an 8 as possible. So that if it does affect any of your other 16 hours, that it's affected in a positive way. That you're taking great ideas, great memories, great experiences back home.
So what's your view on customers who are not a culture fit? So in other words, you might have this incredible culture and value people, but yet your customers may have a completely different view on that.
Yeah. I think I have a huge challenge with that. I think as young, new entrepreneurs, I can say it's like cricket. You swing for every ball. You try and knock every ball out the park. You get those 6 runs on the board. Later on, you get to a place where you start to be slightly more selective, and you hit the balls which are best to get the runs. Again, I think you go through perhaps another phase where, due to the needs of the company, you accept and you try and share your values with your client. We have 2 initiatives that we run. One is called I Know Your Name, but I Don't Know Your Story. That's an internal initiative for our team to get to know each other. And then we have another initiative called Culture Connect. And that's where we invite our customers and our suppliers to come and speak to our team and explain their secrets to success, their culture, those things that make them tick. Because the better the understanding between us on understanding what makes them tick and what's important to them from a cultural perspective, the better we can work together. Because often it's just not an understanding. So if we can connect on that understanding, we feel it solves a lot of problems.
I like that. That's very wise. Okay, and if we go back to your early days, where did you find your customers? Where did you find your first customers? Were you literally like pounding the streets, or?
I did do that. I visited 132. I was promoting a product I'd developed called 24-hour mobility within the MTN channel, and I visited in 2000. I visited 132 stores. Presenting my wares. Yes.
There was no shortcut.
I've done that. I default each time to what I know best. When I first I came to South Africa, and my first job was being a rep. I had 9 different agencies, and that's what I did do. From Cape Town all the way through to Plettenberg Bay was my territory, including Oudtshoorn. And that's what I did. I called on retailers, I called on stores, I knocked on doors. The interesting take from that is that if I was to say that in year 1 I had 9 different agencies, and let's just say for numbers' sake I made R1 million. In year number 2 I got rid of 7, gave them to other representatives in the company, which they gladly accepted, not realizing what I was doing. I then kept 2, and I probably did R1 million in 8 months. Oh, wow. And there's the law of focus. Oh, that's very clever. And that's really, really important. I think, again, that's very much me in everything we do. We don't do every type of insurance. We don't want to do it. But what we do, we want to be the best at doing it. That's really, really important.
Oh, I think that's fabulous. Focus, it cannot be stressed enough, the power of focus. Every couple of days I meet an entrepreneur and they're trying to do 6 new business ideas, and I'm like, pick one, just pick one. Yeah. You know, and the other thing is everyone else has a great idea and wants you to build this business idea with them. And I tried to do that at the beginning, but I just don't have time. Yeah. So I completely agree. Focus is powerful. So
I would say to an entrepreneur that has those 6 ideas, pick the one that can help you get to your goal, be it financial, whatever it be. Reward yourself with number 2. Because there's that Chinese proverb that he who chases many rabbits catches none.
That's great.
But if you can just go after that one rabbit, what is that, one rabbit?
Yeah, I met someone the other day who told me, describe your ideal customer. Like, a lot of people can't actually describe their ideal customer, and then describe the person you don't want as a client. And then, go and find your ideal customer. Cool, thank you. I mean, that's just been so rich and so powerful. So a couple of questions we've had from some of our viewers. Firstly, how do you handle rejection? Because as an entrepreneur, we're just constantly getting, hit with no's and no's and no's. Or not even no's, you just hear silence, nothing,
Okay. So I think the first thing you have to realize is that it's not you. They're not rejecting you. They don't know you in many cases. So if you can take out the you out of that rejection, that's a great help. Realize it can definitely be just the timing. I had a situation just even last night where I was WhatsApping a supplier only to realize that they had written to me and I hadn't responded. So there's always that element that the people are getting busier and busier. They never received the mail. The mail fell through the cracks. So don't take it personally. Do not take it personally. It's nothing about you, and it's everything about what's happening in their life at that time.
That's good.
Another trip is that most sales are made after the 5th engagement. Wow. And but most people will dial out after 3.
It's true.
So
just persevere.
Persevere. Be persistent.
And relationships? I mean, do you strive to build relationships with the people that you are, or how do you, like, someone you've never met before in your life, how do you form a connection with them and convince them to buy from you?
Yep. Well, I think the fact is if they're prepared to even see you, you already got to believe that you're 50%. People are busy, and they tend only to want to see people that they have a inkling of interest in, and if they have that inkling, there's that inkling of an opportunity.
Yeah, true. So if they've expressed a little bit of interest, you need to just work as much as you can to take it to the next level. Okay, awesome. So so we've chatted a bit about some, I don't know, failures, but I know South Africans are really afraid of failure. I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I think everyone around the world is afraid of failure. In Silicon Valley, they laud failures now. You know, it's like it's become a cultural norm to say how many businesses have you failed at, because investors, they know you've learned something.
Yes.
So, but I think in South Africa there's still, and I don't know, you know, other parts of the world, there's still quite a stigma attached to having failed at some businesses before and that. Have you had any failures that you've learned from, or things that have really gone wrong? I know we've touched a bit about losing that big client, and that could count as a failure.
Sure. Yeah. I try not to think about the failures too much. I think it is really important, though, when things do go wrong, to stop and to question why, and to understand and to see what you could have done better. I think the better route would be to look at your current situation and to place some scenarios out and take some precautions to try and avoid them, and not allow them to happen, rather than to wait for them to happen and then be surprised.
Yeah, I think that awesome book on extreme ownership taught me that anything that goes wrong is my fault and my problem, and so I need to own it. So as an entrepreneur, I'm constantly testing different things, lots of different irons in the fire, and a whole bunch of irons never light up. But what I'm very cautious of doing is, and if you excuse all the metaphors, killing the goose that lays the golden egg. I can't take my eye off the ball so much. That's one of the things that I've learned is I started taking my eye off of Shift One, my digital agency, to put all these other irons in fires. And Shift One started struggling because I was trying to do too many things. So for me, those were almost failures or preemptive failures, like you're saying, like don't let it get to failure point. And I had to literally kill about 3 or 4 different things that I was trying to do. And you mentioned focus earlier, and focus on Shift One and growing that as a business. But don't let these things carry on. And I think extreme ownership taught us that, you know, if something's failing, like kill it fast or fix it fast.
So there's a big belief in that never giving up, which could be misinterpreted from how I stuck to a product and an idea and made it into something great. But I just want to say that there's great wisdom in identifying what you've done, in identifying, there's a book called The Dip by Seth Godin, and he talks about, is it a dip that you're in? Is it a cul-de-sac? Or is it a cliff?
Or is it a grave?
Yeah, and all the going off the cliff will end you up in a grave. So the sooner you can identify the situation you're in, the better, because hence then you can take the appropriate action. But there is nothing wrong in discarding, parking an idea. One of the things I'd like to encourage you with is that your ideas are great. Now it's about the season, your time, whether the team could look after Shift One so that it would release you to be able to execute some of those ideas. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the idea. Another big point is to say that not every idea is a great business idea. It can be a passion, it can be something that you love doing, but it's not necessarily going to
make you money.
Exactly, if that's what's important to you at the phase that you're at in your business right now. Different phases mean different things to different people.
Very true. Very, very true. Yeah, so if something's failed, it's not necessarily that it was a wrong idea, but it may not have been the right phase So potentially, that's what I take away from what you've just said. Now, that's awesome. Okay, so let's see here. On an average day, what is your main focus on? On tasks, on people, or on emotions?
Currently, it's on people. It's we've got a lot of we're in a really, really exciting space with, again, initiatives. I have an amazing team of leaders in every department, and specifically with Candice as operation director running that. So it allows me and a lot of time to engage with different departments about different projects that we're doing. I'm proud of one, just to say. An example, something a little bit innovative, is that we have 29 members of the team that don't have driving licenses. So we're helping them all get their learners currently. And then we've committed to assisting them with their driving lessons. So we've engaged with a young African driving school to come to our offices 3 times a week to meet the team. They're all sacrificing their lunch or part of a lunch break to go for a driving lesson. So that's a really, really exciting one.
Wow, that's incredible. And I see you've got here Game for Humanity. We interviewed Mark the other day. Do you want to talk us through the cards that you're doing?
I had the privilege of meeting Mark, and I endorse his mission. It's phenomenal in just doing random acts of kindness. So we purchased some cards. We had them branded for our company. We run an internal campaign, which I think the team loves, doing random acts of kindness to one another, but then one step further is doing acts of kindness to strangers. And the response, I think, is incredibly rewarding. And I really wish Mark and his team the greatest success.
I love the idea. When you told me about it, I was like, we have to have him on the show. It's the best idea I've ever heard of in my life. It's fabulous. It's such a great concept.
I was in a coffee shop today. I got introduced to a lady from America, and she's looking for South African product to take to America. Oh. And I said, well, this could be something that you could take.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So you've got so many programs that you're running internally for your team. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I want to introduce you to some of them. We're doing Friday lunches. We have a couple who make a lunch every Friday. Not every Friday, beg your pardon, once a month. The Friday just before payday. So when money's a little bit tight, they come and they cater for everybody.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. So very, that's a super one.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I think your investment in your team is incredible, and I think that's testament to why you've succeeded. You've put so much seed in the ground that you can only reap a harvest.
Yeah. And
you invested in the right thing. You haven't been chasing money. I mean, money has come, but all along you've put your people before profits.
Yeah.
And it boggles my mind because, I know a lot of friends that work for big corporates, like big multinational corporates, and then they'll hire a new CEO, and the first thing the CEO does is he fires or retrenches, restructures, and they get rid of all the IP.
Yeah.
And they get rid of all the people that know the customers, and they get rid of everyone that knows the product, and they've saved costs, so then they can go and go to the board and say, look what I've done, I've reduced costs by whatever percentage. And yet they've killed the heart of the company.
Yes.
I don't understand. For me, it's blatant stupidity.
Well, it creates, I think in these times, it creates incredible insecurity. You lose your most valuable IP. I sincerely don't believe that somebody coming into a company knows the journey that some of the people have walked. They're not able to be able to say, they look at a figure and they think it's about the money. And unfortunately, this is the problem where I think our priorities have shifted. Yeah. We do well, but I must just say that I'm incredibly conscious of the fact is that everybody has a life. And there's that simple do unto others as you'd done unto you. And it's like these people go home and they have lives. And this is part of their life. In fact, when it dawned on me that your workplace, for many of us, is that we spend more time here than we do at our homes. We spend more time with the people that we work with than the people that we love.
Yeah.
So why not? Why not? And then it comes down to money. And then you say, well, where are our values? And I can say that you can have both. You can be successful if financially and material is important to you in any form of definition of success. But you can also have an incredibly rewarding company culture that is really, really rewarding.
No, completely. I think I've worked at so many companies that were horrific experiences. So when I created my company, I explicitly set out trying to create a company I wanted to work at.
Yes.
Which is nice, happy, friendly people that work hard and learn fast and try hard and do their best. And if we make a mistake, we own it and fix it. So that's the culture, and those are the people that we hire. So it's really important for us that we don't hire people that are not on brand. So I've chatted about that a few times in the culture in previous shows, but making sure that we don't hire people who are going to swim cross stream, because your brand is your people, your culture, your people. You don't hire people that are not on brand, and suddenly you've got this beast that's out of control.
Yes.
It's not understandable.
But you said it, you're spot on, Dylan, in that it starts with the recruiting. Attracting people that want to be with you because they share the same values as you.
Yeah.
I was absolutely humbled, perhaps even 2 weeks ago, when having that coffee with a new member of the team joining, and hearing that this lady had applied for the position she was in 3 years ago, had not been accepted, but still wanted to be here.
Oh, wow.
And that was just amazing for me. Because I asked myself the question that if I had been turned down by a company at an interview, would I ever have considered to reapply? And that just tells me a lot about this lady's character. Then I had to I wrote to one of our team the other weekend to say that he unknowingly has fulfilled one of my dreams. And the dream was that I would create, with the leaders here, a environment that was so desirable that people would leave Johannesburg and Durban to come and join us.
Wow.
Now that gentleman had applied 4 years prior.
Wow.
And had kept in contact with us saying that if there was ever an opportunity, he would like to come.
Wow.
And our HR lady, Nelia, was in Johannesburg, and she, on her leave, took time out to have a coffee with him, to meet him, to say, if you're so serious about joining us, why don't we have coffee? Had coffee with him, and said he's the guy. Wow. And he relocated, and that was my 2015 speech, which I said, this is my vision. Even in the midst of this storm, that I can believe that we're going to build a company that people will want to leave other places to join.
Wow.
And it creates a huge responsibility on us to meet that expectation.
Wow.
But I'm quietly, confidently happy with how we're going.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so last question. What is your favorite life mantra? I know you probably have 1,000.
Oh.
Currently, what's
Currently, iron sharpens iron. Yes. So iron sharpens iron really means that me rubbing up against someone like you, Dylan, you make me sharper. And there may be things that you say to me and I say to you that we don't like. Now, I always think that when iron sharpens iron, there are some sparks. So that's okay.
But painful.
But it's said in the right way. And the other thing that's really, really important to me at the moment is humility. And that if we are humble, we can learn from everyone and anyone.
That's true.
If we're open to it.
That's true.
And that's just maintaining that openness to learning.
I love that so much. One of the bosses that I worked for, and I'm very sad to say that I think he's the only boss that I've ever worked for that's taken the time to sit me down and say, Dylan, you come across like this, like this, like this, and like this. People don't like you for the following reasons. I was like, oh my goodness, thank you.
Yes.
Nobody has ever told me this.
Yes.
I was so delighted, and I immediately set out to change that. And from that day, I changed. But I think people just assume people will be offended,
Yes.
and a lot of people are offended, smaller people who have not yet learned the value of that kind of feedback. But I mean, I find it incredibly insightful and helpful if somebody who loves me
Yes.
tells me this information about Dylan, X, Y, and Z, because then I can be a better person. So I think it's love if someone will give you that kind of input on your blind spots that you just can't see because you really can't see it.
We're calling that generosity. To say not tell you is to be selfish.
That's true.
But to be generous, again, the motive, the intent has to be right. But I often say, if I had my zipper down, would I want someone to tell me? The answer is of course.
Yeah.
So see it as a positive as opposed to a negative.
Embarrassing. Or, no, absolutely. Carl, it's been amazing to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any last wisdom you want to share with our viewers before we call it quits?
This is another really, really beautiful initiative that we've just got behind. It's called Human Rights. There's a lovely story, and I hope I tell the story and give it justice. There was a lady of 72, I believe, whose children had grown up, and she had said to her helper that she no longer required her help, but she felt that she would manage on her own, and the lady was to return back to the homeland township that she had come from. And then it became aware to her that these ladies have an amazing, amazing amount of knowledge. This lady had raised her children up from being young, and she'd felt that the children in the townships and in these communities were at a disadvantage. They, and I think in the words that I was told, start off with a 2-year disadvantage. They did not have access to reading material that was relevant to them. They had storybooks, if ever had storybooks, that were just really out of context. So this lady went on to do the following. She started to empower and equip these domestics, nannies, to help young children. And what they needed was literature, relevant literature. And this company creates these amazing, amazing books. But what's amazing about them is that for every one that you purchase, the company donates 10 books to this organization, which really, slowly but surely, I'm sure changes lives.
So just by buying one of these human rights books, which is a beautiful journal, absolutely exquisite, and you can give these as Christmas gifts to your clients.
Yes.
They will then donate reading books to the domestic workers who are training and teaching young kids. So unemployed domestic workers who are now employed by creating little mini schools, which is to the help where it's needed.
This lady has 1,000 of those ladies now, looking after 10,000 children.
That's amazing.
And the beautiful thing here was we had ours branded. It comes in a whole variety. The company is amazing. The service we received was phenomenal.
I think we'll buy some of these for our Christmas gifts for clients, and I think they're gorgeous as well. They're absolutely stunning. Carl, thank you. You've been amazing.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Your space is amazing, and yeah, it's lovely having you as a neighbour, and wish you all the best.
Much appreciated.
Remember to send any questions that you have to us by any one of our channels. Please subscribe to our channel. Please go and visit my Instagram and go and check me out on Twitter, and please message me. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much, guys, and be blessed.